Interest rates and CDs are at all-time highs, and so if we're not taking advantage of these, we're missing out on tons of profit that we can have with our uninvested cash, or whenever you're saving up for something big, like maybe you're buying a new house, or you're buying something fun, like a boat or a car or whatever. If you're not keeping that cash in at least a high-yield savings account, if not a high-yield CD, then you're missing out on hundreds or thousands of dollars that you could otherwise just have. So in this video today, I'll go over the highest yield savings accounts that are out there right now, including one that claims to be over 7% interest, which is totally nuts to me. But there's a catch, because they're going to limit the amount of money you can get to like $40 a year. Who cares about that? You've got to avoid those kinds of catches and go towards the ones that don't put a cap on the amount of return you can get. We'll also go over some really high yield CDs and talk about when that might be a good strategy for you with your uninvested cash. So let's get into it. First off, I really like M1 Finance in general as a platform to use for investing, as a platform probably to use for almost everything you need as far as banking, including investing. But also when it comes to their savings account, they offer 5% APY right now, which is pretty great, because the other big banks like Chase and Wells Fargo and I think B of A are still at 0.01%, which is basically like a slap in the face. The interest rates are so high right now that for them to not be giving you at least 3 or 4% is like a joke. The catch with M1 Finance is that you have to be part of their premium account or whatever. You have to be paying money, about $95 a year, to M1 Finance to get that 5% rate. So it is a little bit annoying that you have to be paying $95 to get M1 Plus to have access to this. There's other ones coming up here where you don't have to pay a fee. But before we get there, we've got to talk about Robinhood, because Robinhood is another really popular option for people, and they also charge you a fee for less interest than M1 Finance. Granted, it's only barely less, and with both of these services, they're investing at the core, and you're paying a membership fee to be able to have access to other features over and above just this savings account. So for both of these, it's not the whole story just to say, oh, all I'm getting is 5% interest. Or with Robinhood, all you're getting is 4.9% interest. It's more than that. You know, Robinhood gives you bigger instant deposits. They give you margin investing at a better rate, which so does M1 Finance. They give you more access to research tools, things like that. So you're opting into a more premium service, and part of that is this interest rate. My opinion on these kind of pay-to-win services is that sometimes they're worth it, because compared to the average savings rate, sometimes that bump gets you like a significant amount. But right now, it's not that worth it, because there's a bunch of other options that you don't have to pay for. First of all, let's put the kibosh on this whole 7% yield thing. Right now, there's a credit union out there called Landmark Credit Union that's saying they're going to pay you 7.5% interest on your money. Ridiculous. The reason it's ridiculous is they only pay 7.5% on balances up to $500. So that means all you're going to get is $40 a year. Then whenever your balance is over $500, the rest only earns 0.11% API, which is way worse than the average right now. So you should just avoid them like the plague. The problem is that there's a lot of these headline figures that seem really appealing, and then you dig into the details, not that appealing. So let's talk about some others that are a lot more appealing. First of all, SoFi offers no minimum balance, 4.5% savings rate right now, which is pretty great. And there's a handful of others that are right there along a similar line. BMO, Lending Club, Basque Bank, Synchrony Financial, US Bank, all these offer between 4.5 and 5%, and most of them don't have a minimum fee, but some of them do. So beware of CIT Bank, which is 5.05%, which is awesome. You got to have minimum $5,000. Similar with US Bank, 4.5%, minimum 25 grand. Yeesh. And there's a handful of others in here, all of which are over 4%, except for Alliant. But Sallie Mae, Barclays, TIAA Bank, Virtual Bank, all these. If you're willing to go to a new bank to seek out this rate, you've got all the options in the world. And the truth is, no one can say how long this is going to last. As soon as the Fed decides that inflation is kind of under control and things aren't as crazy as they used to be, then they'll start to drop rates again. Will that happen in 6 months or 16 months or 48 months? No one really knows. But there will be a time when this plummets back down to the levels that it had been before, around 2-3%, and it's nothing to sneeze at. But for right now, if anything, we have more impetus to keep more cash on hand, because we can get a secure 4.75% return and not have to risk anything. I mean, the stock market is something that I love, as you know, and the vast majority of our net worth is in the stock market. But the fact is that right now, because you can have such a high return that's respectable, that kind of keeps up with inflation, and have no risk, I'm tempted to keep more money in cash, frankly. If you're not as flexible and you don't feel like switching a bank just to try and pursue a sort of temporary rate, then what you can do is lock in a rate through what's called a CD. If you're not familiar with CDs, it just stands for certificate of deposit. All that means is it's like a savings account with a fuse on it. You light a fuse, it burns a certain amount, and then it's gone. A CD is just like that, because what you do is you choose a term and you choose however much you want to put into it, and then it's sort of locked in place. And this helps both you and the bank to know exactly what you're getting into and not have to have it be fluctuating all over the place. There are CDs out there that can change over time, and there are CDs that you can take the money out of, but by and large, you're picking a time period and you're locking that money away for the whole time period. So typically the way to make the most money with CDs is to get one that's a little bit on the shorter term side, and still short term for a CD is like between 9 months and a year. And so it's a long time to potentially lock up that money. But it's a similar thing with like treasury notes and other things, or sometimes you have to lock the money away for a while to get a high but secure return. You just got to pay to play. And so for these, if you want the highest possible return, look for that realm between 9 and 12 months. If you go shorter than that, it'll be a little less. If you go longer than that, it'll be a little less. But even still, you can get a 3 or a 5 year CD right now that's 4.7%, 4.8%, something like that. And that's a pretty darn good rate if you want to lock that money away for that much time. As I'm skimming through these rates here on this sort of top list, I can see that a lot of 1 year CDs are at or above 5%, which is really cool. 5.3, 5.2%. Even a 3 year CD is at 4.5%, 4.75%, 4.75%, 4.25%. So we've got a lot of good options there. And then a 5 year isn't trailing that far behind. 4.3, 4.5, 4.3, 4.5. So you've got a lot of options out there. Your options are a little bit limited if you want the absolute highest rates though, because I heard about this bank called Alcana Area Credit Union, and it's only a 7-month term, so it's pretty short. It's on the short side, paying 7.19% API, which is just madness. But the tricky thing is, to be allowed to open a credit union there, you've got to qualify for membership. And so to do that, you typically have to live, work, own property, go to school, or worship in any county in Michigan. Or you could work at the credit union, or like have a family member who's an existing member, or have some direct tie to that bank. And so for those of us that aren't Michigan natives, it's not really an option. If you are, hey, way to go. As long as you have a minimum of $7,000, you can jump on this, and I feel like that's a no-brainer. If I lived there, I would do it. I've put links to all these top lists in the description so you can find it really easily and navigate to the bank of your choice. I'll go ahead and pull up my account so you can see what I'm actually doing, because I'm trying to be more transparent here. I'm trying to share a little bit more of me personally so that you can get to know me, so that we can get to know each other, and we feel like we're doing this journey together. And I, of course, forgot my password. All right, several minutes later, I finally logged in, and what I wanted to show you here is my account with M1 Finance, because for me personally, it's kind of a pain and it's kind of a lot of work to open a new bank account, transfer money over there, get everything set up, and then not know how long these rates are going to last. What if all that was for 6 months of gains and then it goes back down to 2 or 3%? Who cares? So for me, I wanted to maximize the biggest gains I could get from within all the different platforms I already use. And because I'm already paying for the M1 Plus service, I went, hey, 5%, I'm jumping on it. I'm taking all of our uninvested cash that we have laying around, sticking it in this M1 high yield savings, and just reaping the benefits. So that's what we're doing. We're getting 5% interest on a little over $23,000. And you can see that the interest I was earning before, well, you can see back whenever I very first opened this account, I had no interest basically getting earned. And then suddenly on June 30th, I'm starting to get interest, $7.31. Then deposited some more money. Then, now we're getting $50 on July 31st. And so we're probably going to be getting something like $50 or so every month just to sit here and have the money do nothing for us. And so for you, you don't need to copy what I'm doing. This doesn't mean I'm optimized. This doesn't mean that I know the future or that anybody online, frankly, knows the future. What I want to do here is to give us some options as far as holding more cash than we had, because we had invested so much that we were like cash poor. I mean, we'd have $2,000 or $3,000 in the bank total, and the rest was all invested, which is really aggressive. It's really optimistic as far as the future of the stock market, and I like that, but I also like having the option to pay for stuff in cash, to not have to put it on a credit card and then move money around after the fact. So for us, because we have some plans as far as what we might want to do with our house, maybe we need a new AC unit because ours is over 30 years old. Probably should replace that because it's 113 again today in Arizona, and it's ridiculous. Just stuff like that to give us the option if we need to do other stuff. It's nice to have the cash there. And here I am, typically the one preaching the wisdom of an emergency fund and having 3 to 6 months of your living expenses in cash. And here we didn't have that. So yeah, we could have sold stocks and had access to money. We could have put stuff on credit cards if we needed to. But at the same time, it's probably wise to have some cash. So for me, I think this makes sense right now. For you, the answer could be totally different. If you're 60 and have $1 million in cash, your strategy will be different than mine. If you're 16 and you have $865 in cash, your strategy will also be different than mine. So the point here is hopefully just to make you aware of the options that you have. I don't want you to miss out, especially if you're more like that first person and you're sitting on a bunch of cash. That's a significant amount of money that you're just missing out on because you won't make a move. And for you especially, I would think it'd be worth it. For those of us with less cash, it matters a whole lot less because 5% of $1,000 in the scheme of things is like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Is it worth the headache? Probably not. But if you have a lot of cash and you're not earning any interest because it's sitting in like Wells Fargo or something, you got to stop that. You got to move that money around. Do something to at least benefit from this little window of time we have when we have high interest rates. Otherwise, you're just getting smoked by inflation. That's how I think about it. That's it for today.